The galaxy had fallen into shadow. Once thriving star systems now lay in ruin, their planets stripped bare and their people reduced to ash. The Krithans, an implacable force of conquest, moved like a storm through the cosmos, leaving devastation in their wake. For the Xerixians, a once proud and advanced civilization, this storm had reached their doorstep. Their fleets were shattered, their cities smoldering ruins. Desperation had taken hold, and with it came the unthinkable. Begging for mercy from the uncaring void, a Rixer, elder of the Xerixian High Council, stood in the desolate command chamber of the last intact orbital station. His once pristine ceremonial robes hung heavy on his gaunt frame. His species, with their crystalline skin that shimmered like starlight, had always been revered for their dignity and intellect. Yet now, as he stared at the fading stars beyond the viewport, his crystalline features were dull and cracked. Despair clung to him like a second skin. Elder Rixer, a trembling aide, whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the station's failing systems. The beacon is ready. The signal can be sent if you still believe anyone will answer. A Rixer nodded solemnly. The signal was a last, desperate act, a universal plea for help encoded in over 100 languages. It carried no promises of reward, no assurances of victory, only the raw, naked truth of their plight. He turned to the comm panel, his Talon hand trembling as he activated the transmission. To any who can hear this, a Rixer's voice cracked but regained its strength. We are the Xerixians, and we are dying. The Krithans have left us no future. We beg for mercy. If there are any who would stand against the darkness, we implore you to answer. The words faded into silence, swallowed by the vastness of space. A Rixer lingered, as though waiting for an answer that would never come. Across the void, on a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable star, the message reached an unlikely audience. Humanity, still new to the interstellar stage, had observed the Krithans from afar. Earth was a modest world, its technology centuries behind the galactic titans. Yet, within the confines of a military installation deep beneath Earth's surface, Captain Nathan Carter listened to the Xerixian plea with rapt attention. Carter was a man defined by his resolve. His sharp features and piercing eyes reflected a life spent on the front lines of humanity's fledgling interstellar efforts. The Xerixian message struck a chord, one that resonated deep within him. He turned to his second-in-command, Lieutenant James Rhodes, who leaned casually against the control console, chewing on a toothpick. "This is suicide, Nate," Rhodes said, his casual demeanor barely masking his unease. "We've got half a fleet, no advanced tech, and a Krithan armada that could wipe us out without blinking. Why the hell should we get involved?" "Because no one else will," Carter replied, his voice steady. "And if we don't, what's the point of us being out here? We're not just explorers, James. We're supposed to be more than that." Rhodes sighed, shaking his head. "You're insane." Carter allowed himself a small smile. "Maybe. Prep the team. We're answering the call." Above Earth, the fleet's engines roared to life, a fragile beacon of hope amidst a galaxy of despair. The briefing room aboard the Endeavour was small, its walls lined with flickering screens displaying tactical readouts. Captain Nathan Carter stood at the head of the table, his dark uniform sharp against the utilitarian backdrop. Around him, the core members of his hastily assembled crew listened intently, their faces a mixture of determination and doubt. "Our mission is simple," Carter began, his voice calm but authoritative. "We're going to help the Xerixians, and we're going to show the galaxy what humanity stands for. I know we're outgunned, and I know this isn't what we signed up for, but if we don't act, no one will." Lieutenant James Jimmy Rhodes leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. His sharp features were set in a skeptical expression. "With all due respect, sir, we're bringing knives to a gunfight. Krithans aren't exactly known for playing fair." Carter turned to Rhodes, his gaze unwavering. "You're right, Lieutenant. They're faster, smarter, and deadlier, but they're also predictable. They underestimate us because we're not on their radar. That gives us an edge, if we use it wisely. Across the table, Marcus Cole, the ship's lead engineer, spoke up. His quiet, measured tone was a stark contrast to Rhodes' brashness. I've been analyzing Xerixian tech. It's different from anything we've seen, but I think I can adapt some of their systems to boost our firepower. It won't be perfect, but it might give us a fighting chance. Carter nodded. Good. Focus on what we can control. Rhodes, I need you to work on combat strategies that play to our strengths. Speed, creativity, and adaptability. Krythons are used to overwhelming force. Let's show them something they're not prepared for. Rhodes let out a low whistle. I guess we're all in then. He leaned forward, a trace of his trademark cockiness returning. Fine, but don't blame me if this ends with us as space dust. The captain's lips curved into a faint smile. Noted. As the crew dispersed to prepare, Carter lingered in the room, staring at the star map projected above the table. The Xerixian coordinates blinked in a dim red light, a stark reminder of the stakes. He felt the weight of his decision pressing down on him. Erixer's arrival on the Endeavor added another layer of tension. The elder Xerixian entered the room flanked by 2 human security officers, his crystalline form catching the light like a fractured gemstone. His gaze swept the room, lingering on Carter. You are humanity's leader? Erixer asked, his voice resonant yet weary. Just one of many, Carter replied, extending a hand. Erixer hesitated before clasping it with his own clawed hand. Your species is untested in galactic warfare. Why do you risk so much for those you do not know? Carter's answer was simple but firm. Because someone has to. Erixer's expression softened, the faintest glimmer of hope returning to his eyes. For the first time, he allowed himself to believe that perhaps these humans, these audacious, defiant beings, might be the answer to his people's prayers. As the Endeavor prepared to jump to Xerixian space, Carter addressed the crew one last time. This is it. No second chances. Let's show them what humanity can do. The ship's engines roared to life, propelling them into the unknown, and into a fight none of them were certain they could win. The Endeavor emerged from hyperspace into a system scarred by war. The Xerixian homeworld hung in the distance, its once vibrant atmosphere now veined with streaks of smoke and fire. Surrounding it was the Krython fleet, monolithic black ships that moved with cold precision, their sheer size dwarfing anything humanity could muster. On the bridge, Captain Nathan Carter stood at the center, his eyes locked on the tactical display. Status report, he demanded, his voice steady despite the tension rippling through the room. Lieutenant Rhodes, at the helm, glanced back. We're holding position just outside their detection range, but they'll spot us if we move any closer. Good, Carter said, turning to Marcus Cole. The engineer was hunched over a console, his fingers flying across the controls. I've integrated Xerixian shield modulators into our system, Marcus explained without looking up. It's not perfect, but it should buy us some time once the shooting starts. Carter nodded. Time is all we need. He stepped forward, activating the ship-wide comms. All hands, this is Captain Carter. The odds are against us, but we didn't come here to lose. Stick to your stations, trust your training, and trust each other. Let's make history. With that, he turned back to Rhodes. Lieutenant, take us in. The Endeavor surged forward, followed by 2 smaller frigates. The ships moved in tight formation, their paths weaving erratically to avoid immediate detection. The Krythons noticed them moments too late. Alarms blared across the enemy fleet as the human vessels opened fire, their weapons targeting key command nodes. Hit confirmed, Rhodes shouted, grinning as one of the Krython cruisers lurched sideways, its engine sputtering. But the Krythons responded with ruthless efficiency. Beams of searing energy lanced through the void, narrowly missing the Endeavor. On one of the smaller frigates, a direct hit split the hull in 2. Carter clenched his jaw but refused to waver. Stay on target. Cole, deploy the countermeasures. Marcus activated the modified Xerixian tech, releasing a cloud of refractive particles. Krythan targeting systems faltered, their beams scattering ineffectively. For a moment, it seemed the tide might turn. Rhodes pushed the Endeavor into a daring dive, skimming the surface of a Krythan battleship to deploy explosive charges. The enemy ship erupted in a brilliant fireball, prompting cheers from the human crew. But the Krythans were relentless. Reinforcements swarmed in, forcing the humans to retreat. "We can't hold this position," Marcus shouted, sweat dripping down his brow. Carter's mind raced. "Then we changed the plan. Rhodes, prepare for evasive maneuvers. Cole, set up a feedback loop using the Xerixian tech. Let's overload their command systems." "You want to blind them?" Marcus asked, already moving to comply. "Exactly. Without centralized control, they're vulnerable. Let's see if their arrogance works against them." As the feedback pulse activated, Krythan ships began to falter. Some veered off course. Others ceased firing entirely. The humans capitalized on the chaos, their weapons striking with newfound precision. But victory came at a cost. A Krythan destroyer targeted Rhodes' frigate. Despite Carter's desperate orders to withdraw, Rhodes pushed forward, drawing enemy fire away from the fleet. The explosion was blinding. The Endeavor shook violently, and the comm channel fell silent. Carter stared at the empty screen, grief tightening his chest. "He bought us time," he said softly. "Let's not waste it." The humans pressed on, their determination burning brighter than ever. The Krythans' retreat was abrupt, their once dominant fleet now scattered across the void. The Endeavor hung motionless in space, its hull battered but intact. Inside, the crew moved with a mix of exhaustion and elation, their survival a testament to ingenuity and sheer determination. On the bridge, Captain Nathan Carter stood silently before the viewport, his sharp features etched with both relief and sorrow. The Xerixian homeworld loomed below, its surface scarred but alive. For the first time in weeks, the Krythan blockade was broken. Marcus Cole approached, his hands blackened from hours of emergency repairs. "We did it, Captain," he said, his voice heavy with fatigue. Carter turned to him, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Not without cost," he replied, his gaze drifting to the empty chair where Lieutenant James Rhodes should have been. Cole nodded solemnly. Rhodes knew the risks. He made his choice. Before Carter could respond, the bridge doors opened and a Rixer stepped through, his crystalline form glinting faintly in the dim light. The elder moved with a steadiness that belied his earlier despair. He approached Carter and bowed deeply. "Captain Carter," a Rixer began, his resonant voice carrying an unusual warmth. "On behalf of the Xerixian people, I offer my eternal gratitude. Without your intervention, we would not exist to see another day." Carter inclined his head. "We didn't do it alone. Your people fought beside us." Erixer's crystalline features softened. "It was your example that inspired them. We had forgotten what it meant to hope. You reminded us." The elder's words were interrupted by a chime from the comm station. A young ensign turned to Carter, her voice trembling with emotion. "Captain, Xerixian leaders are requesting a live broadcast. They want to address their people and include you in their message." Carter hesitated, then nodded. "Patch it through." Moments later, a Rixer stood before a glowing holocron, his regal presence filling the frame. The elder spoke with a renewed strength that resonated across the battered cities and shelters of his homeworld. "Xerixians," he began, "today we stand not as the broken remnants of a proud people, but as survivors. We owe this to those who chose to fight when others turned away. These humans, though smaller in number and power, have shown us that courage and unity are greater than any weapon." He gestured toward Carter, who stepped forward reluctantly. The captain's eyes swept the room, his resolve unshaken. "We came because it was the right thing to do," Carter said. "But this isn't just a victory for humanity or Xerixians. It's proof that when we stand together, we can overcome even the darkest forces." The Krithans will return, but when they do, they'll face more than just one world. They'll face a united front. The broadcast ended, and silence filled the bridge. Elixir turned to Carter, his gaze steady. You have given us more than our survival. You have given us a future. Will humanity walk beside us in what lies ahead? Carter extended his hand. Count on it. As the Endeavor prepared for its journey back to Earth, Elixir watched from the viewport. The ship's engines flared, and for the first time in generations, the Xerixians felt the stirrings of hope.